How's it going, everybody? RazingHel here, and today I'm playing Hammerwatch. So this is sort of an isometric, two-dimensional pixel art dungeon crawler RPG game. I know I usually don't cover RPGs on this channel. I like Hammerwatch. I've played it in the past, about 2 years ago, and let's just take a look at what it is. We're just going to do a single player here. So there are two campaigns currently available for it, and there are also some mods that you can get from the Steam Workshop, but I would most likely just be happy playing the original campaigns. I have played all the way through Castle Hammerwatch, and overall it was a fun run through it. I have run through it a couple times. Once or twice was in multiplayer, and it's much easier in multiplayer. We have several different classes. We have the Wizard, the Paladin, the Ranger, the Warlock, the Thief, and the Priest. I traditionally like playing the Ranger when I'm playing by myself because you can keep your distance. Then there are a few different difficulty settings. We're just going to play it on medium, and then we're just going to go back over here. Okay, and load. So here I am on the map. Now I definitely recommend playing this game with a controller because it's much easier to strafe when you have a controller. You can just rotate like this. So right now I'm using an Xbox One controller. There are like 8 directions that you can aim with your character, and you can also auto fire. Like I'm holding down, what is it? The X button. As you can see, I don't play many of these games, but for example, in this case, let me see here. How does this work? Yeah, okay, I can strafe like that. Still trying to figure out how to do this. So without a controller, it's going to be very difficult to strafe like that, which makes the game unnecessarily complicated. So it's not a game you can play with a keyboard very easily. You almost have to. A controller is almost mandatory unless you're exceptionally good with a mouse and keyboard in that sense. If you remap some of the settings, it's perfectly possible to play it that way, but you're still going to be at a disadvantage. So what I'm doing here, where we're just killing stuff, bust the boxes open, grab the loot, and kill enemies. So there are a lot of different enemies. Right now I'm dealing with bats and bugs. There are quite a few more bugs, and as you will see, they are relatively quick. And if I don't do the strafing right, I am going to get hit by them. Now, like I pointed out, the Ranger has an almost unlimited amount of range damage. Oop, there was a bomb. If you want to stay away from the bombs, obviously. But a lot of the other more up-close and personal characters, they will be in a situation where they take a lot of damage, and that is especially difficult to deal with if you're playing by yourself because you don't have another player along to heal you. I overall would say the game is best played in multiplayer. It is much more enjoyable. I know pretty much any game that's well put together is more enjoyable in multiplayer, but the Hammerwatch really benefits from having additional people in your party to deal with these because they're different classes, and the different classes have different strengths. For example, the priest can heal, or I think it's called the cleric, can heal other party members, and that is actually quite beneficial for that diversity. I have actually, like I pointed out, I was the one who played the healer in the runs through of the game that I did in multiplayer, and it was with the strangers, so you can get through it with just like regular public lobby players, because once they leave, the game continues on for you. So as long as you can stay alive, most likely if you wait long enough, somebody else will eventually come along and you can help pick up where you started. So the game doesn't penalize you in that way, where if you run out of lives, if there are a whole bunch of incompetent people playing with you and they just burn all your lives out, it's not going to affect you personally. The lives are kept separate, which is quite beneficial when it comes down to actually making the game playable in multiplayer, because if a game is not, if you can't just pick it up and play it with a public lobby, you're going to have trouble keeping the multiplayer scene alive, because nobody will want to play public games because it's very difficult to ever win or ever get anywhere. There was a secret tunnel, apparently. Well, not too secret. There was a big switch that opened the whole thing up. And here I am killing more bugs. There are some secrets in this game. Like I've mentioned before, I've played all the way through it back in 2014. It was like, wow, late 2014, early 2015. So it was a couple of years ago almost already, believe it or not. And I kind of always wanted to cover it because I had a lot of fun with it back then. And it is definitely sort of up my alley. Like I usually favor strategy games, but this game, the aesthetic of it, I'm usually not too big into pixel art either, but I think this one was exceptionally well done. Here we have a secret hole. We found a secret area right there, and seems to be some sort of potion in there. But I wanted to cover it because it has a nice aesthetic to it. The dungeon crawling is something that I like, the sort of medieval castle business. There was a second campaign, obviously, it didn't have the same look to it. It was set in a more arid, temperate, no, not temperate climate, dry arid climate. And I didn't finish that one, but it wasn't for a lack of trying necessarily. I think it was just more difficult. And then I tried playing it in multiplayer, but apparently there weren't many people who were actually interested in playing that one. I forget exactly the details behind it. I remember I was actually playing that on my laptop at the time instead of a desktop, which, I don't know. It could have had something to do with why I didn't end up finishing both campaigns. So there are about 10 chapters. Don't quote me on that, but they're somewhere in the area of 10 chapters. What else can these characters do? Should be able to get to a wall. There we go. I got the key, and the key was required to open the door. So you have other abilities besides just shooting. As you can see if you look at the character's lower bar, and here we have a saving checkpoint. That's not an ability though. Oh man, this is getting close. So I should have the ability to plant a bomb. I'm trying to figure, oh, there we go. Right, there's the bomb. It was the left bumper. And apparently I don't have enough to plant another one. Okay, it's the right bumper. Yeah, so you have a special ability. All classes have a special ability. In the case of the ranger, obviously it is the bomb. And then there we can get some mana to recharge it. The special abilities all use mana, and as you can see here, I should have been strafing to get away from that. I forget what button do you use to strafe. I don't remember. That's generally not good. Apparently they pause a little bit before actually attacking them. So each character, each class I should say, has a different special ability, and obviously, you know, like I've pointed out before, they work best in tandem when you can get a whole bunch of players together using the different abilities to deal with the different enemies. There will be introducing more, oh yeah, we can see some more varied enemies coming up right ahead. They're slugs, and I suppose I don't have to bother doing all this gold collecting. Gold is used for upgrades, so it is fairly important to get all the gold, but fortunately there's not too much effort involved in it. It's not something that feels necessarily repetitive. It's like you're just going through these regular maps, these regular levels, and you're going to be clearing this stuff out anyway, so it's almost, I mean, I don't think there's any leveling up, so your characters you're not going to be doing any leveling up of that sort. Found a secret room here. There's a bomb. So you don't have to worry about doing that every turn because, just took a huge hit to my health, because it is a roguelike game. So if you die, you're going to have to start over from the beginning again. And if you had to actually upgrade your character every time, I shouldn't say, it doesn't earn experience. Your character doesn't earn experience. You do buy upgrades for them, but it's based off of the gold. So if you get a lot of gold, you can get, here you got some health. If you get a lot of gold, you're going to be able to upgrade your character quite nicely. I need a key to open that door apparently, but it isn't based on fighting experience. So technically speaking, I think you can just leave enemies behind if they're willing to let you go through. There's really no point in unnecessarily dealing with them unless you feel the need to. So I got the key there. Obviously, then we can open this door over here. And there are quite a few enemies here. I need to get into strafing mode again. I might actually want to remap the controller for that because the current controls for it are not overly intuitive in my opinion. I think you have to hold down the left trigger while pointed in. So in other words, you can't do it while you're walking, obviously. You have to stop, hold down the left trigger, and then hold on the right trigger, and then strafe. So it's the strafing is probably one of the weakest parts of the game because it's absolutely necessary if you actually expect to survive. But on the keyboard or on the controller, neither of them are necessarily easy. That worm was just spitting fire at me, spitting poison at me. But the worms they're ranged. So, you know, you don't just have melee, or what would you call it? Like, you don't have all of the enemy units engaging you. It almost be like a melee attack basis. So some of them are ranged, obviously. And things get a lot more exciting as the game goes on. Some real mazes that you actually have to navigate through. And you have to figure out, what is the best way to deal with enemies. You can get them to sort of destroy themselves by walking over dangerous areas. There are different traps available in different levels. And if you can figure out a way to get the enemies to walk, to sort of lure, to bait them into those areas, those traps can do a lot of the work for you. Otherwise, you might get stuck in a situation where you actually need to go through the trap to get somewhere, to get out of firing range of an enemy or something, and then you end up taking damage. So it's a little bit of potluck there. Like you can go either way. But a lot of the game is just doing this, which is mindless entertainment at its best, I suppose. Obviously, it kept me entertained for about 14 hours before I actually grew tired of it. And like I pointed out before, I had not actually finished the second campaign, which is based in a more arid climate. It's pretty much the same stuff though, so it's like I wouldn't be expecting anything that much different from it. I was just hoping I could find some additional I don't know, drop a bomb or something. There we go. Blow them all up. I wanted to see if I could find some different enemies here. Try to get myself into some different situations. Right there is a save. So you do have checkpoints and lives, but like I said, it is roguelike in the sense that if you run out of lives, you start out at the beginning of Castle Hammerwatch all over again. I like games that are themed around castles. I don't know if you might have picked that up. It is definitely something, a medieval kind of castles. It's a style that I greatly enjoy. Can't get enough of, essentially. For good or bad, for better or worse. And the ranger is not all that exciting, so I think we've pretty much seen everything there. Let's try another class. So here we have the Paladin class. Would that be a good one? Wizard, Ranger, Warlock. I want to try something that is, yeah, so let's do Paladin because that's a more melee focused character, and then we'll see right here back at stage 1. And Paladin is doing what a Paladin does best, up close and personal melee attacks. Oh, look at that. You just hold down the X button. I'm not used to Xbox controllers, so I have to look at the buttons on it quite embarrassingly. And what else does the Paladin have? Oh yeah, he has the little sprint. So in other words, if you need to get away from enemies or you want to sprint into enemies, you can do some good butchery here. But I think one of the ways that the Paladin falls down is the fact that he's rather susceptible to ranged enemies because you have to close that gap, and that's really where his dash comes in beneficial. For example, if those were enemies that fire on me, I could do a little dash into them and then start hammering away, start chopping away. But he's great against regular. I mean, I think a lot of the heroes are actually weak against ranged units. It's one of their biggest adversaries. One of the best ways you can actually take damage is by engaging in ranged units, because it's sort of like a bullet hell. It becomes in the later stages. There's just so much coming at you. It's very difficult to dodge without taking damage from somewhere. Luckily, there are ways, like right there with some health. But let's try another class. Let's try the wizard ones. That should be fun. Load times are quick. He's got the fireball. Look at that. Some collateral damage. And what would his special ability be? Oh, it breathes fire. Look at that. That's pretty cool. I did not actually play the wizard a lot. As far as I was aware, it is a quite delicate class. You have to play it very cautious in the beginning before you start getting some of the really cool power-ups. And especially when you're playing by yourself, the range is just not good enough to the point where it's possible to really do this on your own with a wizard. Especially on the normal difficulties. Maybe on the easier difficulties, it's something you could do. But there are definitely a lot of classes. I suppose some might compare it a bit to Magicka. Now, that's not a game I've never really played. I've run out of mana. But it looks very similar in theme. I just wanted to sort of demo the different classes here, because I think it would be rather unfair to only play the ranger. Let's play the priest. The priest can heal, but unfortunately this is that's a standard attack. It's like a little stave blessing, but the healing only works for other players, so This is almost a multiplayer exclusive class, I think. It gets to that point. And the interesting thing about the stave attack is it's ranged, but it doesn't cover the area in between where it hits and where your character is. So it's not a beam, it's just in an area in front of you. That's the only area that it does damage in. And that can be a little bit complicated to figure out sometimes. What you can do, however, special attack, speaking of, we can do that. That's also the healing beam. If you hit an ally with that, it'll heal them. But if you hit an enemy with it, it'll actually damage them. So that's pretty cool right there. I mean, that is sort of like a ranged attack, but maybe it's not a multiplayer exclusive class. Like I think you could get through the game with the mage, the cleric, I suppose it is. But it would definitely be harder because it's much more beneficial in a multiplayer setting, because having a unit along that can just heal the entire party is very beneficial to the party's long-term survivability. It's one of the reasons that I play this class when I was going for a complete run-through in multiplayer, because what can happen is I plan on playing it all the way through, so people can drop out and join all they want, but I want to make sure that I survive, and if I have this healer, I can actually heal all of my allies, which means that they'll stick around longer, more likely than not, because a lot of people drop in and out. That has been my general experience in multiplayer, and that was a couple of years ago, so like I don't really know what the scene is like anymore, unfortunately. I really didn't give it a test. Like, this was rather on the spur of the moment. I just decided, you know what, it's been a while since I looked at Hammerwatch, and there was actually an update for the game, but it didn't introduce anything all that different. So like, there was no real new content to try playing, which was rather unfortunate, I suppose. But it is a pretty decent in its own right as it stands. I like it. What other classes? The Warlock can replenish health. Let's try that once. I don't think I've ever really played the Warlock. Seems very like a light Paladin here. I need to take some damage just to see if I can... Yeah, okay, we took some damage there. I want to see if I can heal. No, okay, that does not heal. I'm not exactly sure how he heals, but apparently his mana recharges. So that might be his strong suit here. Sort of has automatically recharging mana. It'd be interesting. I don't think I experienced as much of the game as I probably should have. The Warlock actually looks pretty cool now that I look at it. He has chained lightning as a special attack, but unfortunately I ran out of mana right there. So yeah, his mana does recharge on its own, which is an exclusive for just a few classes. Most classes you have to use mana pickups to get mana back. But his special attack is pretty powerful, having that chained lightning like that. So one other thing, I should have actually done this before. Let's do the Temple of the Sun scenario. Let's do the Warlock again. I did not think of this, but Temple of the Sun, here we are. This one has a bit more of a story behind it. You can actually talk to some people around here, which is not, I mean, the original Hammerwatch to Castle Hammerwatch, however that went, there wasn't as much questing to it. Like, this one actually has some quests besides just getting to the end of each level, which makes it a little bit different. And the upgrade system was different as well, I believe. Like, there's a lot of talking to do here. That is a lot of dialogue, and I'm not going to even try to read all of it. I kind of forgot how this all went. There's a lot of stuff here. But let's see if we can get into some trouble. Apparently not. Apparently you have to unlock some quest dialogues first. So anyway, it's Hammerwatch for what it's worth. Thank you very much for watching as always, and I hope to see you next time.